Well, this memorial plaque dedicated to Joseph Stalin and put up at the Moscow Law Academy continues to dominate the Russian papers. Komsomolskaya Pravda today has a list of all the other Stalin statues which have recently appeared, and there are loads of them. For example, in a hotel in southern Russia, in a village park, in a business centre. The paper asks this question: do we need such reminders of the great leader, as Stalin was known? Well, there are lots of yeses. For example, this writer describes Stalin as the greatest politician of the last century. This reader of the paper writes in and says that Stalin was a great ruler. He turned a country of ploughs into a country with a nuclear bomb. Our Democrats, she writes, can't stand the very mention of his name. They are annoyed by people who glorify Russia. That is offset by this historian who writes that Stalin killed one of my grandfathers and put the other one in prison, and he was innocent. Nezavisimaya talks about the second coming of Stalin and says this is accompanied by the corresponding atmosphere in the country. The paper says that there are now proposals to bring into schools lessons of political information and to put together blacklists of enemies of the Russian people. The paper says that Stalin is rising from the grave under the pretext of keeping alive the memory of victory in the Great Patriotic War, in other words, the Second World War. But, the paper says, some activists are openly putting Stalin's overcoat on the shoulders of the new Russia. Moving on to Nedelia, which says, according to a recent poll, 76% of Russians are proud of their country's victory in the Great Patriotic War, but only 6% of Russians are proud of the revolution. And this is really interesting because at the same time as we're seeing a kind of re-Stalinization of Russia, turning a blind eye almost to the terror he unfurled against his own people and stressing the positives like the victory in the Second World War. We're also seeing an attempt by the authorities to criticise 1917 and the communist revolution, basically because I think, as far as the Kremlin is concerned, 1917 sets a bad example, the example of a people rising up against a government.